Welcome on in, ladies and gentlemen, to a pretty fun episode that we got here today, and a little bit of an emergency pod here. As usually, again, you guys know us. We're here doing episode recaps and whatnot. The series with the Yankees is not even halfway over, as the game is starting here around in like 15 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes or so. But there was some news today with the Ketel Marte being extended. We'll get to that in just a second, but I want to say if this is your first time in here at D-Backs Dispatch, we want to welcome you in here. This is not the normal trio of hosts today, as our man Brandon is still getting that bread. So keep getting that bread, Brandon. We'll get your thoughts tomorrow when we join back up again for a series recap. But like I said, we are here doing an emergency pod to talk about Ketel Marte being extended by the Arizona Diamondbacks. He was already under contract through 2028. But they decided, you know what? You're the face of the team pretty much. You're going to be a Diamondback for life. And they gave him a little bit more money and a few more years on his contract to pretty much guarantee that. As it was, I believe, rumored by, I have his name, Mike Rodriguez. I believe he was the one that broke the Justin Martinez extension news before as well. He did say yesterday, according to my sources, Dominican second baseman Ketel Marte and his Arizona Diamondbacks team are working on a contract extension worth over $100 million. And then a little while ago, I'd say around like 2:30, I believe, Nick Picoro did end up tweeting out, at 1:56 today, Nick Picoro, D-Backs reporter, tweeted out, the Diamondbacks have signed Ketel Marte to a new extension through 2031. It is worth $116.5 million, $64 million of which is new money. Went on to break down some of the money per year. It does kind of increase a little bit as, the time goes on. Like I said, he was originally a D-back through 2028. But in 2025, next year, he's going to be getting $14 million. It goes up $1 million to $15 in 2026. 2027, he's sitting at $12 million. And then in 2028, it's at $20 million for the year. 29 is going to be $22 million. And then once it's in 2030, he's going to be at $22 million as well. And then the 2031 season is a player option for $11.5 million. So this should have Ketel Marte under contract, I believe, into his age 37 season. So he should hopefully be a D-back for life. We're going to ignore the few games he played as a Mariner. Those don't count. But it looks like the D-backs are locking down their face of the team, continuing their recent flurry of extensions, as now this is what the fourth extension I believe they've given out in the last like 50, 60 days, something like that, which is just absolutely crazy. And then there was a little bit more news or a little bit more details that came out as John Gambadoro of Arizona Sports, he did end up tweeting out the new Ketel Marte deal does have a 5-team no trade clause in the deal. Fingers crossed, hoping that one of those teams is the Dodgers, is my guess. But there was, again, a lot of news that kind of, again, leaked out last night. Well, not leaked, but, kind of surfaced last night that we were waiting, because we all know what yesterday was. You can never take any deal that's announced on April 1st with any kind of, reality, because you don't know if it's an actual April Fool's joke or if it's real. So now that it's April 2nd, and all this news came out, it is fully confirmed, and Ketel Marte is now going to be a Diamondback for life. So, Gabe, kind of want to get your thoughts, obviously, initial reactions to everything. As we, kind of stated already, he was still under contract. It wasn't like he was on an expiring deal or going to be a free agent even in the next year or so. But what is your initial reactions to them giving Ketel a little bit more money and keeping him a Diamondback into the 2030s?
I think it's just great in general, not so much because of I don't know. I saw some tweets saying like, "Oh, why would you extend him? You already had him under contract through his age 34 season. Like there was no need to. Like they didn't want a team friendly deal." But I think this is just a goodwill extension from the Diamondbacks, like showing that they believe in him and that they want him to be a D-back for life. And he doesn't have any signs of stopping. He is 31, I believe. So he's not young like he was when he first signed his first extension. But he still covers the ball. He's still good from both sides. But I was just happy to see this. Like I honestly wasn't expecting it, just because, like you said, he was under contract for a few more years. So I didn't think it was going to come anytime soon. And by the time that contract expired, he was about to be 34 or so. And at that point, maybe he only had a couple more years left in the big leagues. Maybe it just depends on how he age. We've seen guys age pretty well, especially if they're in the DH spot. Be able to play into their like later 30s. Like you look at Goldie right now is what 38, right? 37, 38. Um, JD Martinez also, although he hasn't got picked up at all, which is
That's
strange to
crazy.
me. Yeah, it's like maybe he just wants more money or something. I don't know what's going on there, but yeah, I mean I'm excited for the team in general, but also Cattell, like he deserves a big contract. He's he was already set up for life, like you said. He already got that generational wealth of this 70 million or whatever. He's even close to 100 million in total for his career. But being able to get this extra bit of money, and I believe there's a sliding scale as well for certain accolades that can go up to like 100, almost 150 million as well. So if he stays healthy, he plays well. I think that second base position is going to be taken up by him for maybe a couple more years more, and then you move him to the DH spot, and then the DH spot we don't have to worry about getting 1 year guys, or even a platoon, which is something I talked about in this offseason, which was I wanted a stable DH. I didn't want a platoon bats in the DH position, and Cattell can hit it from the left and he can hit it from the right, so we don't have to platoon Cattell. Um, which is great. And then it still opens up the spot for Lawler for second base. And depending on what we do with Gino, I know there's a lot of talk about extending Gino, but he is in his mid 30s. And Lawler's on the way as well. But I'm happy for Cattell. I'm happy that this organization is showing guys and around not just here but around the league, guys who are in high school, guys who are in college, who are going to be eligible for the draft soon. Hey, if you play well for this team, you're going to be able to sign an extension and get your money.
Yes, I know I tweeted out from my personal account earlier, but it definitely seems like the financial hole that Jerry Colangelo and the previous regime, left Ken Kendrick and the current ownership in, is definitely, a part of the past. I know that that hole was a big reason why they, had to let Goldie go and didn't extend him, who is somebody that should have been a Diamondback for life. I know obviously can't go back and change things, but that was a tough pill to swallow at the time. But it does seem like, with giving them or giving Perdomo the money they gave him, giving Justin Martinez his payday, extending Brandon Pfaadt, obviously another, I think every single one of these players is now under contract along with Corbin Carroll through, I think, the 2030 or 2031 season. So should have this core of players under contract for a good amount of time. And it is nice to just see that again, we have been very critical. We'll be the first to admit it. I know myself personally, especially in the past, on maybe Ken Kendrick's at the time lack of spending, lack of wanting to put into this team, which could definitely be very frustrating. Especially, I know a lot of us. It's kind of like one of those where, especially in the 2019, 2020, 2021, when Cattell had some of those seasons, there's the joke of like, oh, cool, can't wait for them to be traded off or walk in free agency because we don't give anybody money. Hopefully this kind of trend does put a little bit of that in the rearview mirror. And, even like you said yourself, let's, either guys that are hopefully looking to be drafted by the Diamondbacks or guys in free agency in, the years to come that like, hey, you know what, like we're willing to ditch out some money. Maybe not like Dodgers money, maybe not even like Steve Cohen Mets money, but they are willing to put money back into this team, which should, again, I know kind of even like a little side tangent, or not tangent, but a little side piece, maybe also shows the Senate and senators and stuff in the state of Arizona that like, hey, like this team brings in money, we're investing into this team, like let's get the stadium deal done so we don't have to worry about them going anywhere, because a lot of these guys are under contract for well after where the new D-backs or the D-backs current lease ends. So let's get that all that taken care of. There's just a bunch of good signs,
Yeah,
and nice to
that
see
that's
for the
that's
team.
something I've been thinking about. Like, I think that's something that held up a lot of the spending as well, even after they got out of that Colangelo hole. Pause. That the uncertainty of this team in the stadium, were they going to stay here? Same with the Coyotes. Like the Coyotes didn't have a home for such a long time until finally they're just like, well, we're going to just reallocate them, move them somewhere else. And the D-backs were and have been in danger of that for since 2018, 2019, with this when these new stadiums issues started popping up, because again, like the county was responsible for everything else. It's like you rent a house, or yeah, let's just say you rent a house and the original part of the lease says, hey, we'll take care of all the If the AC goes out, we got it. If plumbers, anything happens to the house, we got it. And then they just neglect it and are like, "Oh, psych, you actually have to pay for it now because we don't want to." And you can't get out of this contract for a few more years. Like that's how this worked out because the county just did not want to pay for repairs, even though they agreed to pay for the repairs. And since then, it's just been legal battle after legal battle for the D-backs to maybe just try to get some of these repairs done. Because I mean, if anybody has been at the stadium, the humidity in there was stupid. The it's terrible. The AC. There's been a lot of repairs that been needing to be done, specifically the AC, because that's a hazard. I think especially for the older crowds that go, you can't have everybody's 75-year-old grandma out there with 95-degree weather with 75% humidity in that stadium. Like people are gonna faint. And I think maybe this team knows something we don't yet about the new stadium agreement, that or the new bill that's coming through. I know the governor said that she's going to sign it as is. She has some reservations, but she's going to sign it. But I'm sure the D-backs have representatives, talking to the Arizona representatives, the senates, and stuff. And so I'm sure they know their lobbyists that they have in there. I'm sure they know, like, more than likely, it seems like they're going to be staying because I don't think they would be making these sort of moves if they for sure were going to be moved out of Chase Field.
Yeah, that is a great point that this has some extra, maybe domino effects and other factors involved to it. Like you said, maybe this was holding up the spending and all that. So it is nice to see, a lot of positive signs for this team, whether it's, on the field or off the field. I would say issues in quotes because I don't think they're issues now, but still technically an issue because it's not like fully resolved, but it does have some potential domino effects. But before we get into, I did have another question, or at least I have a question to propose to you, Gabe, and everybody else listening in the chat. Before we do that, I want to shout out everybody here in the live comments. Our man Brandon, while he's getting that bread, he is still a part of the fun, a part of the Marte Parte, as he's saying there. It is always a parte. And even as Josh says, ain't no parte like a Marte Parte, and a Marte Parte don't stop. And it's not going to be stopping until after the 2031 season because especially I'll say my other question that I had with my coworkers too. I think that'll be a fun one, a little fun side debate. So I won't get to that one just yet. But John saying that he's predicting a monster game for him today, which I agree. It'd be nice to see. Like he's still hitting pretty well, but get the first home run of the season out of the way. Maybe even like a multi-home run game. That'd be really nice. They are facing off against I think Rodon today, so he does like to hit lefties. So that should be a pretty fun matchup. Martin Drew was saying, "Let's freaking go! We need more leadoff home runs." And his walk-up song, "Bumping in Chase Field," and that's very true. He always does have some pretty banging walk-up songs. Riley had a question here, which we'll save for the end. So if you guys do have any questions, kind of relating to Ketel Marte or the team and extensions, anything like that, let us know. Me and Gabe will get to a little bit of or a few of them near the end of the show. So again, appreciate each and every one of you guys for tuning in. Again, if this is your first time in here, welcome on in. Like, comment, subscribe really does help out. Push us into the ether because there's especially now with our man Jesse and Jack Summers having their own podcast. There's another another mouth of the watering hole. So there's plenty of D-backs content to go around. So push us out into the ether and have more D-backs fans like yourself, join the party and the fun. But getting back onto the the topic of the Ketel Marte extension, my question to you, Gabe, and obviously everybody at home listening in the chat and all that, is do these recent extensions to core players like mentioned before, Perdomo, Martinez, Fott, and now Ketel, do these extensions give you hope to them bringing Gallen back in the offseason because it seems like they're willing to spend? Or do you think that this is more of an indicator that the money that could have been used for Gallen is now being allocated to these other players on the roster?
I think it's a very tough question. I think this is still very early in the season, especially for Gallen, just because of the issues he's had with his fastball command. He had no command of it last year. He struggled with it in 23 at the end of the season. And this year, it's the same thing. I think if halfway through the season, if he's still struggling with that fastball command, I don't see the team honestly making a big push to bring him back unless they can get him for 20 million a year or something like that, because we can't be putting all our chips in that basket if he's just not what he was before. But I do think this, I mean, it is a good sign, I guess, that they could bring him back. But being a Boris client, he's not going to sign an extension. But maybe that might convince him to actually tell Boris, like, hey, like, I know we don't sign extensions, but like, I'm happy here. I'm happy with the team. We have a good set of guys here, and they're going to be good for a long time. Like, maybe start working with the front office to get something done here because maybe he does really want to stay here. And we mentioned on other podcasts before, especially during the offseason, that this team potentially has about $80 million coming off the books next season. Not in a couple years from now, next season already. In a couple years more, we get off of the Erod contract. We potentially get off of the Corbin Burns contract because he has an opt out as well. So there's a lot of money coming off the books for this team. So when people talk about, well, like when you even mentioned about the the Colangelo issues, like with the money and stuff. This team is not spending money, more than it has right now. Like they're probably going to have around the same payroll next year, especially getting off of the Jordan Montgomery contract. They're not going to have it next year either, which is 25 million. Gallon is making about 15. Merrill Kelly is making about 15. Um, so there's quite a few guys on this team that are coming off the books for next year, and the team is just trying to establish itself as the core group of guys because year after year after year we have questions about, okay, well, who's our this starter, who's here, who's there next year, who's our third baseman because Gino's gone. um Ketel, like a couple more years, okay, who's taking Ketel's place? Who's taking this person or that person's place? And I think finally we have a solid group of guys that we know are going to be here for a while. And for Gallon, I think this is going to help convince him to stay. But I guess I wouldn't be surprised if
You're
he
not holding your
just,
breath.
yeah, not holding my breath for it just because it is Scott Boras. If it was any other agent, I think this deal would have been done a long time ago.
Yeah, so that is a good point. Like, even on the Snakes Territory podcast, like you're talking about with the dip in Zach Gallen's command, they're even saying that when Brent Strom got here, excuse me, when Brent Strom got here, Zach Gallen's command, playing off of his other pitches, was a big reason why he was so effective, and pitching in the elite, in the elite way he was, especially during that 2023 season, when he had that like scoreless inning streak. And they're saying that basically every start that he has, like he had on opening day, just kind of knocks off a couple million from the deal. So maybe it's one of those where, again, he is a Boris client. I'm still very convinced he is going to be hitting free agency no matter what. But who knows? Maybe these kind of extensions make him go, you know what, Scott? Like, let's see if there is something that can be done here. Like, lock in my money now because, like, who knows? If he keeps performing poorly, it could just make his contract go lower and lower and lower to where it's going to be, maybe if he was expecting the Aaron Nola, I think Aaron Nola got like 200 something million in his contract. Maybe it was like 160. I don't remember exact numbers, but it could be, well in the tens to 20 million less than the Nola contract, and even a little bit more if he still struggles. So maybe he wants to get something kind of locked in now. I'm kind of on the same page as even like Daniel Duncan in our chat saying Gallon's gone, and then even our man Brandon, he's saying I won't say officially gone, but under 25%. And again, it's very valid. Again, even as Daniel's saying, go find one more top tier guy that's younger. We have Ryan and Brandon with Gilbert on the way. And even Martin Drew was saying that I feel the milkman is going going elsewhere, and it's definitely very valid. I know, like we've kind of talked about it a bunch, but at least especially with some of these extensions going on recently, it's something to, I guess, kind of keep a potential possibility. I mean, like even like you yourself said, this Ketel extension kind of came out of nowhere. Even I feel like the Brandon Pfaadt one came out of nowhere. The Justin Martinez one kind of came out of nowhere. Like especially Martinez and Pfaadt, they were obviously want to avoid arbitration years, so that's probably one of the main reasons why they did this. But still, like they had so much team control still, where usually you don't see the teams go the Atlanta Braves route, I guess is the way a lot of people, including ourselves, are kind of calling it, where they lock up this young talent super early and give them their payday. So then if they keep playing at the projections and the way that they're playing, they don't have to pay them as much money. Not in like in a Scrooge McDuck kind of way where they're trying to be greedy, but that's how you got to try to stay competitive in baseball. We saw the Braves do it with a lot of their core, like lock them up early, so then you can actually have a really solid team for years to come. And who knows, maybe there is potential that Gallon does, surprise all of us. But again, if he had any other agent, I think that this would be maybe a 50-50 shot where you maybe extend him early, maybe you wait, he becomes a free agent. But the fact that he's a Boris client, like, and I think he's still a very confident person. He's still, I know in my Like, even though he's struggling, I still think in his mind, he's like, I know who I am as a pitcher. I've shown it before. Just because I'm struggling right now, like, if anything, it's probably going to motivate him more to reach free agency and like hopefully do, obviously as well as he can. Obviously, he wants to help his team win, but I think he's also looking in the, hey, I'm trying to get myself that big Boris payday, and I'm not going to jeopardize that by not hitting free agency early. Kind of like even Christian Walker. He finally had a chance to hit free agency. He's like, I'm hitting free agency. Like, I'm going to go test the waters. I'm going to see what the whole process is about, because I feel like Gallen's definitely going to be that kind of guy where, let these teams fly him around and, kind of give him like this big show, like, oh, here's what you look like on the jumbotron in this hat, here's what you look like in this team, let's go, look at the facilities and all that. And I think he wants to experience that, but like I said, we could be surprised. I'm not sure, but
Well, I will say there is a Boris client who was coming off his age 30 season, who had a great year, who was seeking $200 million in free agency, and this man got $50 million, and that was Jordan Montgomery. Um, that contract, I mean, obviously it's bad for the D-backs, but there was interest in giving him 200 million. He didn't, or 150 million. He didn't want it. They wanted 200 million. Zach, if he has a Jordan Montgomery type of season, just a reminder for Jordan Montgomery coming off of the season where in 2023, obviously won the World Series. He had 188 innings, a 3.2 ERA. That's Zach Gallen type of numbers right there, and that's damn near peak Zach Gallen numbers. If Jordan Montgomery with those type of numbers got $50 million and didn't sign until, was it February 18th or whatever it was?
yeah,
I don't know. I feel like that might push Gallen into being more willing to accept an extension, hopefully, like seeing what came with Jordan Montgomery, because again, Zach, as far as I know, hasn't gotten Tommy John. He can throw hard.
I think the closest he got was when he broke his elbow in batting practice years ago.
Yeah.
And had to get, like, I don't remember if he got surgery for that, or because I don't think you can, like, unless it's like a complete fracture, a lot of those, I don't think you get surgery. I think you just have to let it heal.
So I don't know. That's the main thing that I think of right now is just Boris. He's had a lot of disaster class in recent years. This could be one of those cases where Zach Allen, puts his fate into his own hands and doesn't rely on Boris to, mess up some contract of his.
Yeah, saying it's definitely gonna be something to kind of keep an eye on. I guess someone's that Gown related. He is gonna be starting here, which we'll wrap this up in just a second here, because obviously the game is gonna be starting, the D-backs taking on Yankees in game 2 after that amazing game 1. But we'll save that discussion for tomorrow night when we do the whole series recap with our man Brandon back in here. But definitely, gonna keep an eye on every single one of his starts this year, because who knows what things are going. Could be some fun. But bringing it back a little bit more Ketel Marte related, especially with this extension. The question and the topic that me and my coworkers were talking about earlier. Obviously, this could line Ketel up to be a Diamondback for life. Probably going to be, I think, especially if he stays producing the way he's doing it, and he does, stay in a D-backs uniform through 2031, and does, or even if they give him a few years after that and he retires a D-back eventually, I think he's going to have his number retired. I think he's going in the D-backs Hall of Fame. Probably going to be up there with Paul Goldschmidt, because in my mind, Goldie's going to retire before Ketel. Goldie's going to be in the D-backs Hall of Fame and have number 44. And then, in my opinion, 4 is going to be the next one retired immediately after that. And I think that's I think what a lot of D-backs fans wanted. It's nice to see D-back for lifers and not have us be kind of like the Cardinals, where they're bringing in all these old veterans, or like, even the D-backs in some of those earlier years where we have so much good talent come up, but they just leave and go get known elsewhere. Like Goldie finally winning a MVP for the Cardinals had a little bit of us worrying, like, hey, if he goes into the Hall of Fame, who does he go in as a D-back or Cardinal? But Ketel, I think, will definitely go into the D-backs Hall of Fame. Will be lined up. But the question that we were kind of talking about at work was, what's the potential, like, maybe Ketel, not even just D-backs Hall of Fame, but maybe Hall of Fame. I know the D-backs or the Baseball Hall of Fame is a little tougher to get into compared to, like, the NBA Hall of Fame and even the NFL one. But what are the chances that you think Ketel Marte could go in the actual, Cooperstown, especially as a D-back? Like, there's no chance. It's not like the Goldie situation where, he had some solid numbers in another uniform to where maybe he wears either no cap or their cap. Like, Ketel, just to kind of go off some of his stats, he has 31.2 career WAR right now. He had a 4.9 WAR in 2023 and a 6.8 WAR last year. Could have broken the 7 mark if he had that final month of the season to play. He has a 115 career OPS plus, or sorry, 119 career slugging of 467 and a career OPS of 815 with 143 home runs. So I guess my question to you guys, or you, Gabe, and everyone else in the chat, to kind of wrap things up here is: do you think that there's a chance that Ketel Marte could eventually make his way into the Baseball Hall of Fame, and like what he might need to do through the remainder of this contract and this extension to, kind of boost his case as a Hall of Famer?
I think he needs to repeat what he's been doing the last couple of years for the next 5 years or so, or even the length of the contract. I know it's going to be impossible just because of his age, but I do think he has the chance to at least be close to that. He hits 290 in his sleep, so if he's able to replicate at least the success he had last year for the next few years, that should put him a little bit over 60 WAR for his career, and even some of those accounting stats should put him close to maybe 300. At least offensively, I believe at the end of this contract, he will be about as close as Goldschmidt, maybe without the accolades that Goldie has. But I do think he's going to be in that little on the edge of making the actual Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna be tough. I think he's gonna have to put up the kind of the same season that he's been doing. At least 5 WAR every year, hopefully even 6 or 7 plus. And I mean, especially as a second baseman, like I feel like it might be a little easier as a second baseman to make it in, whereas like pitching, DH, like first base can be a little bit tougher. But who knows? It's not out of the realm of possibilities, and I think that it definitely could be. At least if he stays healthy and he stays producing, especially if they slot him into a DH. I'm not gonna write it off. I think that at least he'll have a solid case, maybe not a first ballot, but a guy that could potentially make it at least overall after a few years on the ballot. Lourdes Gurriel Jr. did just hit a home run. Live updates here. Let's go, Lourdes. Looks like he just hit a 106-mile-an-hour cock rocket going 399 feet. We'll save the rest of that kind of talking tomorrow. Just little bit of a live updates here. And
we have one more question, real quick.
Yes, I was going to get to that.
The next question. Yeah. So the question from Riley Dunn: who do we think the next extension will be? I talked about it a little bit in our group chat, but I think it should be Gabby. The problem with Gabby is that he has not played more than, I believe, 130 or even 120 games in his career. We've seen guys like I had him in my head right now. The last two, Cal Raleigh and what's his name in Toronto?
Who was it? Kirk?
Alejandro Kirk. I believe Sean Murphy, is that a name in Atlanta?
Yeah, the Braves gave Murphy an extension when they traded for him from the A's.
Yeah, so we've seen those type of top of line catchers. All of them have played 140, and even I think Cal Raleigh is like 158 or something like in his last few seasons. Like these guys play a lot of games. Same with Adley Rutschman. These guys play a lot of games, and I think for Gabby, that's the key. I don't think this team should give him an extension if he can't stay healthy for at least 140 games.
Yes, I think that's a very good point, and honestly, I'm going to agree with you that if there's anybody that's next up in the line to get an extension, would be Gabby. Again, it's just as if he can. I know that's a big reason why we even talked about it. Why Torrey's kind of trying to give him as much rest days as he possibly can here and there. I think if he can stay healthy this entire season and have really solid numbers, kind of putting up the numbers that he was expected to as a top prospect in the Blue Jay system, and even when we traded for him, I'm fully on there with you. Like Cal Raleigh got a nice deal. I don't know if Gabby would get either more or less. It'd be hard to predict the numbers a little bit. Obviously, like you said, with the some of the injuries and not like a big sample size for an entire season to play with. But if he can stay healthy, I would definitely say, like let Gallon walk, give some of that money to Gabby, give some of that money to other guys in this team, build out the whole of the roster, especially guys that play every day versus just a guy that goes every fifth day. So I definitely have my money on Gabby because catchers are, especially, I feel like we've had a rolling carousel of catchers ever since Miggy Mont left. We haven't really Carson Kelly, obviously he was supposed to be our catcher and the main guy back there, but obviously some injury issues and then some struggles at the plate here and there. He never really had I feel like a full lockdown, hold on that position. So if Gabby can, stay healthy with his defense, if he can continue, being a really solid hitter, I think it's a no-brainer to, give Gabby that, kind of extension and make him a D-back, even whether through 2030, whether a few years less or even a few years more, just like continue locking up this core, because that's how you're going to get fans to want to continue going to the game. If you keep their favorite players around, keep a team that everyone knows, where you don't have to worry about a continuing change in the roster. But I definitely think that I'm curious to hear your guys' in the thoughts, or if you're listening to this after the fact, let us know down in the comments. Kind of the same thing. Question on the extension. How surprised were you, and your thoughts on the Ketel? The possibility of this either being a good or bad sign to Zach Gallen, maybe staying around after the offseason, and then obviously who you would pick for your extensions. But any final thoughts here, Gabe? Obviously, I know there's a game going on right here. D-backs don't get any more after the Pena 2-run shot, but first inning runs are always nice. It's good to see them score outside of the 8th inning, because they've been doing that a lot the last few days. But any final thoughts about the the whole Ketel Marte extension before we get out of here?
Just congratulations to him and his family. I know he does actually a lot of work in the community. Same with the DR. He seems to be a really great person. I'm happy for him and everyone else around him to be able to get this big contract and get the money that he's been deserving this whole time.
I agree. Echo the same exact thing of you. Congrats to Ketel. Been here since 2017. I have one Ketel Marte jersey. It's signed. It's up on my wall, so I got to get an actual one that I can wear. Good excuse to get the black and teal one, because I don't have one of those yet. So you guys out there, if you don't have a Ketel Marte jersey yet, go get a Ketel Marte jersey. He's going to be here for a good long while. You don't have to worry about the curse of, like a lot of fans probably do, where they buy a jersey and the guy's traded immediately. So go get yourself a Ketel jersey, and let's enjoy a face of the franchise that's going to be around with some other names for this roster for a while, because there's a few names now that are
15 years. By the way, 15 years of Ketel Marte and the D-backs uniform.
That's so hot. I love that. Honestly, he's going to be the longest tenure D-back. He's probably going to be, maybe not more home runs and whatnot than Gonzo, because it still seems like he has a little while to go. But hey, you know what? Crazy things can happen. I think he's going to go down as the best D-back of all time. Which I'd be very okay with. But again, appreciate each and every one of you guys for tuning in here for this little emergency pod for D-backs Dispatch. Again, like, comment, subscribe. Really does help out the algorithm. Tune in tomorrow. We will be back for our regularly scheduled programming of doing the series recap. Make sure you guys follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Bunch of banger content on there all the time. Make sure you guys also go check out our Discord in the description below, and go check out azsnakepit.com. A bunch of articles. We do have, I believe Josh just cooked up a little bit of a recap for the Cubs one. So if you guys again like more written content, whether it's us or many of the other great writers over on the Snake Pit, I think you guys would really enjoy it. So again, go check out azsnakepit.com. There's a bunch of banger articles over there every day. But again, appreciate each and every one of you guys for tuning in. We have a game to go watch, and I hope you guys are excited to be back again tomorrow as we discuss the rest of it. You guys take it easy and go D-backs.
Under the lights, the game goes down. Desert heat, but we own this town. Brett and Gabe on the call, with Josh in the back, bringing it